Our Work It Daily members, you all know that we run the #1 career growth club on the internet, and our members are coached by a team of trained specialists, myself and the team that I've personally trained. And a very big part of the process as they're looking for work is salary negotiations. We take this extremely seriously. And the reason for that is that studies show that the more you can negotiate and get comfortable with negotiating over your career, the more money you'll make in your lifetime. And also, the more satisfied you'll feel about the relationship between you and your employer. So you need to know how to do this effectively because, you want to build a win-win situation. Sometimes employers are in a position to give you more money. Sometimes they're not. But no matter what, you want to build a brand and make them aware of the fact that you are an earner and that you are looking to grow your career, and that as you grow your career, you're looking to make more money. So all of the techniques that I'm going to teach you today are going to help you set that expectation, that understanding around your brand for your business of one. Okay. So with that in mind, let's talk about some basics here. Really important stuff. First thing that I want you to know is you should never, ever, ever avoid or skip the question around salary. And this is pretty important because there are some career coaches out there, and I'm not going to name names, but there are some people out there that are getting a lot of attention that are saying, hey, companies don't have any right to ask you that. If they ask you what your salary requirements are, you say right back to them, I'll tell you what my salary requirements are once we've been through the interview process and we agree that I'm a fit for the role. Please don't do that. Please, I am begging you, don't listen to this bravado advice. I need you to think about this. You are a service provider. The employer is your customer. When that recruiter asks you for your salary requirement, it is because that recruiter's job and how well they're seen as doing their job is based on bringing candidates that match all of the criteria that have been set by the hiring manager. So when you disrespect a recruiter and say, I'm not going to answer that question, you are being disqualified. And in some cases, just so you know, blacklisted. So please don't listen to that advice. It doesn't work. I am telling you that right now. If a recruiter asks you for your salary requirements, you're going to need to give them. But it is all in the delivery of that and how you can open up that conversation so that you don't disqualify yourself. Now, I understand people are saying, but that's not fair. I feel like the recruiter gets the upper hand. They may be willing to pay me more money, but if I don't know that, I may negotiate a lower price. That's not true at all, folks. There is a way for you to have a very healthy and respectful dialogue with a business partner, because that's how you want to see this company, that allows you to both talk candidly and politely about your needs and to get to a financial win-win. But you've got to understand how to do that. So that's my first tip. Please don't skip it on a job application. People that leave things blank on a job application, you get disqualified. I don't think people understand that. When you skip fields on a job application, most of the ATS systems today automatically disqualify you. And I'm sure there are a lot of people right now going, okay, JT, I've applied to 100 jobs and probably skipped things on all of them, and that's why I'm not getting a call back. Yeah, it is. And it's unfortunate, but now you know. So you never, ever skip the salary question on an online application. You also never avoid answering the question in an interview. Okay? All right, wanted to make that point clear. Let's keep going. The second thing that I want you to know is that whenever possible, both online and certainly in an interview, but definitely online, you want to give a range if you can. So if it's an open field and it says you can put in a range, you want to put in a range. And the range is simply your walkaway rate all the way up to your ideal rate. So your walkaway rate is the least amount of money you're willing to accept that won't make you have to go looking for another job. You see what I'm saying? So you take the job because you're making money, but it's not enough money. So you're going to keep looking for a new job and you're going to ditch this job as soon as something better comes along. That's not a good idea. All of us have to set a rate. Businesses have to set a rate. I want you to think about this for a second. How would you feel if companies you worked for said, well, or if services you wanted to purchase, let's say you go out and they said, well, for you, I think it needs to be this amount. We wouldn't like that, right? We want to know the rate. Well, recruiters, hiring managers are the same way. Give yourself a rate. What is the least amount you are willing to make that you would stay in that job and you would grow your career if you got that pay? We all have that number, folks. It's the number that pays the bills, that covers our expenses, right? That we can afford to live on. You need to define that rate and put it in your range. Now, your ideal is what you'd love to make. The important thing here is to do your research. Don't ask for something unrealistic. You need to go and do your homework on various sites and figure out what a reasonable salary is for your level of experience, where you're living, because salaries vary deeply between, big cities versus rural areas, etc. You have to think about your industry and everything else. And you have to come up with a good, healthy, ideal salary that you want to make. That then becomes your range, and that's what you put in there. All right. And in doing so, you're going to cover your bases. Now, if they don't contact you because your salary is too low, that's fine, because you couldn't afford to take the job if it was any less than that anyways. But if you fall in the range, then they're going to at least take a look at your application, because somewhere in there is the rate that they've been given that they're told they can pay. So that's what you're looking to do there, okay? Don't try to game the system and say, what range can I put in to get a phone call? The range needs to be your personal walk away for your business of one and the ideal that you want to make, end of story, okay? That's the important thing. As you get better in your role, as you learn more about yourself and what you're worth, your range will get bigger and bigger and bigger and stronger and stronger and stronger. But for right now, you need to set a range. And everyone should do this exercise. This is something we make every single Work It Daily member do. We have an entire course on salary negotiation that takes them through how to do that, but you need to do it. Now, what happens when they only let you put in one number? So some applicant tracking systems will not allow you to put the range in. It will take just one salary. What do you do? Well, here's my advice in this situation. Look at your range you've created, find the midpoint, what's the halfway point between the two, and then take 10% off that. Go 10% lower. And the reason for that is I want to make sure that your salary gets somewhere within their place that they're looking for. If you've done your homework and you know your value and you know what you're worth, you're putting yourself on the slightly lower end of that, which is most likely going to put you in the right place for them. Okay. And now some people say, but wait a minute, JT, isn't that going to mean that I can't negotiate for more money later because I put the salary number in, they're going to hold me to it? No, this is just the online application. You got to get past the online application first. Once you get there and they call you, you're probably going to have a further discussion around salary, and we're going to cover that in a minute. Okay. But right now in an online application, our goal is to give them a number that we could accept that is also within their range. Okay. Very straightforward, very simple there. All right. Let's talk about interviews. Let's say you get past the online application now because you've put in a number and they contact you. They're usually going to ask you about salary, especially if they required it on the application. A lot of times the recruiter will say, so you said that you're okay with $40,000 a year. Is that true? All right. This is going to be your opportunity to provide a range. So again, we want to give that nice broad range. You'll be able to say, well, you know what? Your online application system only allowed me to put in a single number. So I did. But the truth is my range for the position is between this and this. And you're going to give them your walkaway rate all the way up to your ideal. Once again. Now, this gives you a chance to explain why, because you want to say that. I have a range and let me explain why. The range is really based on all the other aspects of the job, like the benefits and the commute and the career opportunities in the future and some of the other things that are involved. Not knowing any of that when I applied, I gave you a number that's within my range, but I certainly want to hear more about the opportunity in the event, based on what I hear, it feels like I might need to earn more money to make it work. That is a realistic and honest thing. If two businesses were negotiating on some services, one would say, these are my rates. The other would say, what am I getting for that? And then they'd say, well, gee, I need more than that. And they'd say, okay, well, but if you need more than that, then I'm going to need to up my rates in order to cover the cost. It's a very normal dialogue that businesses have all the time. You need to do the same thing. You need to think like a business and say, well, here's the number, but it's going to vary based on your needs. This is a fair enough concern. At this point, if the recruiter says, look, I got to be honest with you, this only pays this. It is not going to be negotiable. This is what it's going to be at the end of this journey. If you're the one that we select for the job, this is the salary. Are you going to be okay with it? At this point, you do have to make that decision. Because if they're adamant that it's not going to change, then you are not going to be able to negotiate later on. So you need to say, gee, that's a great question. You know what? It falls in my range. Yes, I'll be okay with that. Because the truth is, if you get to the end and they offer you the job and you're not feeling good about it, you can say no. You can turn it down and say, I just feel like for the amount of work and what's going to be needed of me, that the salary isn't in alignment. I know that you'll find somebody that can, do the job at this rate. I totally understand it, but I feel like I'm going to let you down if I take it at this rate. Again, there's all this negotiation that can happen later on when you're sitting in the driver's seat and you've been given the job offer, right? But if they do ask you in the moment, hey, this is the highest number we can pay, are you going to be okay with that? This is why you do your homework and you have a range, because you're going to have to answer that on the spot. If you say, well, let's worry about that later when I get through the interview process, or you don't give them an answer, you will be disqualified. Because think about it. If that recruiter's been told this is the salary, it's non-negotiable, and they push you through to the finish line, and then you start trying to negotiate, who's in trouble? The recruiter's in trouble. So you have to be respectful of that recruiter's job. And you have to understand that aspect of it. Now, look, all of us in life have been, gone to buy something and it's been too expensive in our minds. And we're like, I have a budget and I can't go beyond it. So sometimes we walk away and we go find something in our budget. And when we do that, sometimes it doesn't work out and we're like, darn it, I should have spent the extra money. Now I get why I should have spent more money. Well, employers are no different. In Work It Daily, I can't tell you how many times we've had said to somebody, look, hold fast on what you need. If it's not going to work, you need to walk away from this situation, because if you accept less than you feel you believe and you're not happy, that is going to show to the employer. And that's not going to create a great working relationship. And you're probably going to end up quitting or they're going to fire you. Whereas if you stand your ground and say, I just can't do the job for any less than this, and they go find somebody else, they'll either find somebody that'll work out, or, and I've seen this happen a lot, they come back and say, you know what? We did more interviewing. You are the candidate. We're willing to pay the extra. Now they are willing to pay the extra and they're okay with it because they've done their homework and they know that you're worth it. You can't just force that on them sometimes. Sometimes you need to let it play out so that your business partner can really understand and respect that what you're asking for is truly reasonable, right? And that's how good businesses of one run. They play the long game here. You're upfront, you're honest, you know your value, you're respectful in your negotiations, and you understand if they're not ready to commit, there's nothing you can do about that other than stand by your brand and tell them that you really do want to work with them and you understand that and you want them to find the right candidate, but you can't budge. Okay, so this is all things that are done when you learn how to coach and work through your salary. Now, if they push you for a number in the interview, right? Let's say you never had a job application. When they push you in the interview and they say, well, we need to talk salary now, and you give the range and they go, well, again, that range isn't good enough. You do the same thing. You say, all right, well, for this case, I'm going to say a little bit less than my midway point would be something I'm comfortable with. Does that work for you? At which point they might come back and say, nope, absolutely not. We need the most we can pay is this. And once again, you'll have a range and say, well, that's in my range. Okay, let's move forward. Or it's not in my range. I can't move forward. But you use these same exact techniques and you say to them, all right, this is it, but I have to tell you, and this is the big point. You want to say, I reserve, the right, or I just want you to know that we're really early in the process. So you've asked me what I'd be looking to make, and I'll give you this number, but that may change. If I find out this job requires a lot more work than I thought, if it's a lot more expertise, if there's maybe benefits that aren't covered that I'm going to have to pay out of pocket, there could be reasons that I might come back to you in the end and say that I need more money. So you can be upfront at that point. You can tell them that and say, here's the number. I'll give you a number, but I can't make that my hard and fast number until I know more about the opportunity, right? So now you've given them what they needed. You didn't reject their request, but you were also upfront about the fact that when you get to the end of the process, if it really is a lot more than you thought, you may not be able to accept it at that rate. This has left the door open for discussion. And again, if the recruiter says, nope, it's not open for discussion, this is the rate that I have to get you at, this is what it's going to be, you will then make a decision to proceed or not. And you may say, okay, I'll do it. And you may get all the way to the end of the process and go, yep, no, I can't do it. That will still be your prerogative. But these salary negotiations, these discussions, they need to happen because you can't move forward in the process unless they feel like you're within their budget. Does that make sense to everybody? I hope so. It's so important for you to know that. Now, let's talk about what happens if you get the lowball offer, because this is what comes up next. I've done this 1,000 times. I know what comes up. Okay, JT, I gave them my range and they literally came in at the bottom of my range. Now, that happens not as much as you'd think, though. I just want to tell people that people are always so worried about the lowball offer. Most great employers I know, when they've fallen in love with you, they don't want you to be miserable. They want you to come in and be happy. They may have budget constraints. And usually when they do, they're really honest about it. Like, this is all we have to pay, but let me tell you about how we'll be able to get you more money down the line. Usually they're really trying to work with you. And you can sense that in an employer and a business partner. But if you get some company that literally is sort of flippant about it and only gives you the lowball offer, you can go back. You can go back and say, gee, this is really hard for me, because it is. And I know most of us don't want to negotiate because we don't like it, but this is your business. You're going to put together a checklist and you're going to say, this is really hard for me because I'm excited about you all as an employer and I want to accept this job, but here's my challenge. The rate that you've offered me is just not enough for what I need. And let me explain why I think I could use more money, why I think I deserve more money. You're going to kind of work it out in your mind. Here's the checklist of things that I think that I would bring to the table that are going to create more value, because this is the important part, folks. When you ask for more money, it's now on you to justify financially how you're going to cover the cost of that. So, I'm going to have to do these things and that's going to help you, and these things and that thing and this thing. You want to explain how you're going to create value. You can't just say, wow, I really just need more money because I do. No one's going to buy that. You have to give them some valid reasons. So you want to work through a checklist with someone. This is something we do with our members. We say, okay, tell me about the situation. Why do you think you deserve more money? But now let's frame those in a way that says, these are how it's going to benefit you if you give me more money. And at the end, you say, for that reason, I was hoping you could pay me X. I know you can't answer me right here, but I wanted to put that out there and tell you that if the company could find its way to pay me this amount, I guarantee you I will exceed your expectations, and I will make sure that you are so glad that you did this and that you are getting the return on the investment. So you're making a claim, right? Just like any good business, they say, if you pay me this, this is what I guarantee you will happen. That's what's happening in this part of the negotiation. You are asking and providing your guarantee. You're asking for more money. You're providing your guarantee. Very important that you do this at this stage. All right. You've got to give the reasons why. Now, what if they say no? See, I can read your mind. I know what you're all thinking right now. What if they say no? If they say no, then this opens it up for a discussion around what is it going to take to get to yes. That's all it is. When you hear no, don't hear no, not ever, and get upset about it. Hear no, not today, not right yet. So this opens up the opportunity for you to say, okay, I know you can't pay me that now. I respect it. What's it going to take for me to be able to get there? What does that look like in your organization? And more importantly, what can I do? What can we agree to? What can we work on so that I can do it within the year? So this is where you're saying, look, instead of waiting for an annual review, I want to talk about how I can fast track and get there sooner. And something you can propose is, hey, can I have a 6-month review instead of an annual review? Can we look at 6 months? And if I've truly proven that I'm exceeding your expectations and I'm creating the value that you need to compensate me, that we can open up the conversation again about compensation and look at getting me to the number that I need to get at. Right. And the reason this is such an important conversation is because if they said no, you need to know, is it no, not today, but hey, we're willing to look at it? Or are they really just saying no, not ever? In which case you may not want to take this job. Right. So this additional conversation, this additional negotiation is very helpful for you. And if they're like, look, we just can't budget it. This is a set number for this type of position. You can ask for other things like, okay, would it be possible to get a little bit more vacation time? Or, can I work from home 1 day a week to cut down my commuting cost? There are things that you could open up and negotiate when they say no to your financial offer. Okay, so there's always a way to work through this and negotiate. And the more you do this, the more comfortable that you get. The most important thing I can tell you here is that, sometimes companies are very set in their budgets. And so having a conversation around what you can do to get there, do you really want to throw out a great opportunity? What if it's a great place to work? What if the people are awesome? The environment's great. It's less stressful. They've got some cool benefits and perks. You need to think about, hey, am I willing to trade off a little in salary because the quality of life I'm going to have by working here is worth it? So you have to be thinking about those things as you go through this negotiation process. Okay. Awesome. So there you have it. All the tips for negotiating. Here's the thing that I'm just going to close with. If you go through this whole process, hopefully you're working with our career coaches. We're making sure you're checking all your boxes. You get to the end and all that's there is a job that's below your walkaway rate. It's up to you to decide, but I will advise you 100% of the time not to take it. If a job is below your walkaway rate and they're saying they can't ever get you where you want to be, because it's a different thing if they're saying, hey, in 6 months we can get you there, or in a year we can get you there. That's a different thing altogether. But if they're saying, no, this is our rate, it's not ever going to change, and it is below your walkaway rate, it is not in your best interest to take this job, because you've defined your worth. You've set in your head what you need. And for you to go to this job and be unhappy about it is a problem. It's just going to bother you every day. It's going to show in your attitude and your approach to the work. Not to mention, you're going to keep looking for a job. We both know that. And then you're going to leave. And then this company is going to be really angry with you because they trained you, you agreed to a price, and then you walked off the job. If you've ever, I've heard so many stories of people who are building houses or doing construction on their house, and they hire a contractor, and the contractor is there for a while. And then all of a sudden the contractor stops showing up and walks out, leaves them high and dry. It's horrible. And, they get bad reviews online. Well, the same thing's going to happen for you. Recruiters talk. And if you're in some industry, some circle, and you ditch a company because of this, just like this, it will come back to haunt you, right? This is a business partnership. You want to treat every employer that you work for from 2020 and beyond, like a business partner. And so if you decide and you commit to a job, then you're sticking with it.